Good evening, here's Cinera, and welcome back to Practising Programming in C. So what we're doing here is basically we're essentially compressing this code here. I reckon we're compressing it and making sure that it's actually doing the right thing. And compressing, all that is simply making. It's essentially, if you imagine like there's two bits of code, this bit here and this bit here. If two bits of code are doing the same thing in two different cases, then all you do is you either loft it out into a function and call that function once, or you just do it in all cases. That's all compressing is. So I think we are seeing that that is actually happening here, aren't we? Like these two little bits of code here, like this if and this thing down here, this else if, I think they are doing exactly the same thing. The only thing that's different is that in this case here, in the semicolon case, we set the parent back to be the parent's parent. So in other words, we pop back out of the scope. In both cases, we are incrementing past the semicolon. Past the token, whatever it is. So what that means for us actually, I mean, we can sort of do that, can we? I mean, the thing is that we're always going to be, I think either way, actually, in the semicolon case, even if you set that parent to be whatever it comes back as, we still want to be setting the parent back to be the parent's parent, if you know what I mean. So it's safe to do that. Similarly, how it's safe to push the scope on. Does that make any sense? So all that means for us is that we can just do this. I suppose one thing actually, we're not doing in the else case, we're not incrementing past it. Although we don't care, do we? Because in the else case, it's a syntax error and we're off, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, I suppose you can just go like this. That all just happens. And then this is all. You also do that, right? Let me just kind of distinguish between bits and bobs here. So we're taking all of this stuff, and we also want to take the incrementing that. Right, so all that happens. So if token is a semicolon, we're going to set the parent back to be the token. That's already all been set. Which is kind of interesting. It sort of means like that you end up with this. I think we should end up with the same result. Oh, we don't, we get a syntax error. Cool. I wonder why that is. We're incrementing past there. So pushing the support Patreon. Support Patreon itself is an open brace. I presume we're getting into here. Well, hang on, this is always going to be the scope, isn't it? We're incrementing past the thing, aren't we? So I guess actually, because the else is going to get us out, we want to let that happen. And let me just double check. that this routine actually does exactly what I want to be doing. So if it's a scope, let's step through it. Okay. So if we get into this scope here, push a new log level emergency. I guess we could print the identifier, couldn't we? So the identifier is a support list, also set from. This ain't set, which is perfectly fine. So yeah, we've got an identifier. It's support. So it's back to the assignments, which we got. It's back to this token string. So it's a support. Figured it's that with value Patreon. So get scope. So this should be searching in the parent for a scope with identifier, with the key support and value Patreon, and it shouldn't find one, which it doesn't. So then we push on this new scope onto the parent. Set its type spec, which is perfectly fine. And then we absorb the fields from its parent. So this new thing is a support, which can contain icons and URL, and well, one icon and one URL. So it would, in theory, absorb those fields if the parent had those, which it doesn't. Then we print the scope, and all we get is the identifier, which is great. Because that's where we're up to. And then if it's a semicolon, it would then set the root back to be, set the parent to be the parent's parent, which it isn't. So we should go into the else if to see if there's an open brace, which it is. You can sort of see here, because we ignore the new line because that's not a token, that's not tokenized. So we'll go into this thing. I mean, it didn't go into here because there's nothing there, but the key thing is it didn't hit this else. But then it's then jumped past there, and we're on to the next thing. So let's continue until the next time we want to be pushing a scope. So we've got a few errors here. We've got the icon already set, which is perfectly fine. So we'll reassign this icon. So it was previously set to Cinera sprite Patreon.png, and then we reassigned it to be Cinera sprite _ poo.png. And then we pushed anew the URL. Right. So I think we've probably lost that scope by this point. And we're now at a new support. So this is the PayPal support. So we find that it's supported just with value PayPal. And then we should see that we set the icon to be that. And we should see it's an open brace, shouldn't we? Is that right? Yeah. So again, we've done that thing again. Let's continue to the next one. So this is an include. Now again, this is another one that we haven't parsed yet. We passed two supports. We're now parsing this include scope. And that should just be the same thing. It's just going to go through as we just saw the other guy go through. So let's continue to the next. And we're now at person Miyatatsu. Right. So here we go. We should be able to find when we go through here that we will pass through until we get to this support thing here. Because this thing here is a string. This is a string. Well, actually, I beg your pardon. This person equals Miyatatsu means that we've got a scope person, because that's what we're in here. The ID of the scope is going to be person, and the value of that ID is going to be Miyatatsu. And the fields are going to be name, which is a string, homepage, which is a string. support, which is actually a scope, believe it or not. Actually, I'll tell you what, this is interesting because this is going to be able to absorb some stuff. So let's actually walk through this guy. So we've got a person, Miyatsu. You know, remember I was saying it was going to be, well, it's the key is what you call it. The is person, and it turns into this, and the value is Miyatsu. So we're now looking to get a scope. So we're looking to see if there's a scope for Miyatatsu's person, which we should find that there isn't. There isn't, yeah. So we push on Miyatatsu's parent scope. Sorry, Miyatatsu's his person scope. Not bothered by that include. Didn't I have a to-do there? To-do remove? Evidently not. Set the type spec field. So, well, set the type spec for the parent, which is going to set the type spec to person. The type spec is person. Permeability hasn't been set, interestingly. Isn't that erroneous? Shouldn't permeable be set? Ah. So that was busted. What else does that contain? Just the ID, permeable, and field count. And here was that other situation where we were mallocing something. Now the thing about these type specs is that these are fixed. They don't change. So we are safe to actually malloc the exact size that we need, rather than having to push them on as we were doing at one point. So that's perfectly fine. Type ID singleton is set. Yeah. Let's continue. I hope I can continue to step through actually after having just rebuilt that. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's just reload it. Although, can I just do this? You can't do that with talking multi system supplied DS and keeping its symbols, rereading symbols. Not confirmed. Not sure, let's quit it. I think it was something like that, wasn't it? So we're on the we're on include, so it's the next one. Yeah, we're on Miyatatsu's thing. So here we go. Let's continue to go through. We're not going to find that. And then we're going to get down to here, set type spec. Let's just take a look at that parent type spec. Yeah, now we get the permeable is actually set correctly. I guess absorb fields. Oops. could also check if the guy's permeable, couldn't it? Which it doesn't seem to be doing, interestingly. That should be happening, shouldn't it? Right, we don't want to be going into that if we're not permeable. Field is in spec. I mean, we could also make it absorb field itself. Check if it's permeable. Let's do that actually, because it's that always has to be the check that has to happen. So again, so yeah, this is where we were. Set type spec. And this guy it is permeable actually, so this is probably fine. So there we go. So this guy's absorbed. Support Patreon. See the icon was set to Cinera Swipe Poo, which was the second icon. Absorbed the URL. So absorbed another PayPal, another support, the Swipe PayPal. Now let's just continue to step through. So we've just pulled in the person Miyatatsu, so should be setting the name next, shouldn't we? Ah. That's not right. Is it? Because we shouldn't be tokenizing comments. Should we? We haven't set the identifier. Oh. Yeah, it wasn't right because we hadn't set it. So we're on a token identifier, which is fine. It's a name, which is what we were expecting. So basically here, field is going to check if this field, the name field, is in the parent's type spec. And we should see that it is. What does this contain? Actually, it was this, wasn't it? You needed to type field. I can't remember what these guys are. Yeah, it was that. Yeah, so ID name, it's a string, and you only allowed one of them. It's not set. This is set might go actually, because that's part of the thing. That's what we're doing in the stream actually. We're seeing if we can get rid of that. It's set. So we have got a field. Show push is equal to true by default. If we've got a field and the field is set and field is a singleton, Field isn't set, so we're not going to hit that. If there's a field, which there should always be, because we now have a type spec for the root scope, so everybody will be able to get a field. If we get in here, yeah, and also like you can see if field, right? So this is bullshit. We don't need that. So yeah, token is token identifier. So skipping past the identifier. I'm looking at the type of the thing, which we've just determined was an FT string. So we're going to go down to the string case. Then we need to expect an assignment, which we've got correctly. Then we need to expect a string. Ignore that. There's my remove rather. Then we're getting setting up another pair, which is getting the key from the identifier. So yeah, I suppose actually that's what I was wondering. Right. So what we're doing here is get config identifier from token. We're getting, so the token is this whole thing. Well, sorry, no, the token is this. And the ID is this. So we've actually already got, we don't need to be calling get config identifier. We can just use it from the field. Right, we can just use the field ID as the key. Let's make a note of those two things. And let's make a note of them. Do it just down here. So the first thing was remove that if field. And the second thing was set. Right. That's basically what needs to happen to those. Or what can happen. It just saves us doing some more work down here. Set the value to be the thing that we've just pulled out of here, which is perfectly fine. Then we're expecting a semicolon at the end of a string assignment. Yep. So yeah, this is busted, isn't it? Well, it's the is set business, isn't it? Well, actually, is it? Yeah, I'm not sure. Really, we want to be able to say, once we get here, we want to see if this assignment has already been set, don't we? I think we should want to be trying to do this test first. Or to put it another way, we should be using this test to determine whether we should push, rather than doing should push up there. Let's just continue though, because I want to see how this support thing gets pulled in, essentially, because that's the bit that we changed before. Should be the home page now, shouldn't it? I think it's going to be the support. So here we go. So we've got the support, and then we're going to set the field. let's take a look at this field. So it's an ID support and it's of type scope, right? It's not a singleton, it's not set. Yeah, within this scope it is not set, but it doesn't matter because it's not a singleton anyway. So ignore that bit for now because that's probably bullshit. Yeah, field is set shouldn't be happening up here, should it really? It should be happening down there, like after we pushed it. So we come into this scope type. And here we have a scope equals Patreon semicolon. So we've got the assignment, yep. Looking for a value, we're expecting a string, which we do get. Oh, it's going to print the, well, it's going to be the opening brace, isn't it? So we want to print the pair. So it's a support with value Patreon. So here we go. Scope tree is search. And this should find a scope called a support scope with value Patreon within Miyotatsu's already absorbed stuff, already absorbed fields, right? And it does. So that's perfect. And then it's a semicolon. So what this means is we've hit the semicolon, so we're just done. We're just going to pop back up to the scope at the pop back up to the parent scope of this thing, which is the person Miyotatsu. And then jump past the semicolon. So yes, that seemed to work as I expected. Okay, so that's all I wanted to look at. I wanted to make sure that was operating correctly. So now let's go back to the code and just do those little to-dos. And to read the second if field and set the pair key from the field ID. Let's do those two things, and then I think there's some more that we can look at. Right, so you don't need that. And also, it's like field is set. We should be setting that further down. We were saying, wasn't it? So let's do that. It's basically after pushing stuff. I mean, I guess in some ways you could also sort of say that you just do it after the whole loop, right? Well, where would it be? Where's the loop? Is it this? Yeah, it is that. And the field is within here. So I guess really sort of saying, you know, if you get down here without having returned, then you know that you've successfully set that field. But also, again, like, we might just be getting rid of this anyway. The notion of is set. That's the thing, isn't it? That's what we need to actually figure out. If we can get rid of that in favour of just using the, well, these get assignment functions. And the other thing was set the pair.key from field ID. So we've got the pair key. You could also say here if the field.id is, I don't include. But this is that's just test stuff anyway, so that doesn't matter. Get config identifier. Actually, you can just do this, can't you? So it's essentially whenever you see that, you're just setting it from the field ID. There's other guy just set it from the identifier as well. So yeah, this thing again is just the field ID. And now the identifier isn't even used. So the only reason for using the identifier was to set that, well, I mean, was to pass it to that to the get thingamajig. Yeah, and I suppose if the identifier itself, yeah, the only reason we wanted it was to print out the field ID, wasn't it? So with a bit of luck, this should just do the same thing. What did I change? Remove the second if field and set the pair.key from field ID. Scope tokens at 15. So is this not within the if we got field? Yeah, it's not. That's unfortunate. So basically you just have to do it, don't you? Whenever you push a pair, you just set that field is set. Let's just go through all the push functions in it. What is it? Yes. I think this is what you do as well. Yeah, okay, so now we get through all the stuff. And that shouldn't have changed anything. That was literally just a simple code change. So yeah, it was just that if field, and then you just remove that for the if field. Now you see again, if field and, like, why am I bothering? that must have just been either that it just wasn't structured in that way, or I just gone bananas for a few seconds, or not for a few seconds. I was in the natural state of bananasness, and hadn't popped out to the state of lucidity. The temporary state of lucidity. So we've done that, done these guys, and we've set the pair key from the field ID. Now the braid soundtrack has just finished. 40 minutes of that. We're going for 40 minutes. We haven't done an awful lot, but we started. It was more, well, yeah, so we've, what have we done? We sort of, we did this, didn't we? Oh, right, yeah, so we established that this is actually doing what we wanted to, didn't we? So that's now fine. Pretty sure this is just a to-do remove. So stuff is absorbing fields correctly. We're setting that type spec call correctly. Singleton's been set correctly, or rather permeability has been set correctly now. That doesn't need to actually happen. Well, I mean, all the print stuff don't have to happen actually. So we just go through once we're satisfied that it's working. We just go through and remove all of the prints, apart from the print syntax errors, which we actually need to change into be proper errors. They need to actually report some sensible stuff. The other thing was the it was the should set, wasn't it? Should push. Yeah, that was the thing really. It's like we needed to figure out that story. Should push. Where is the pair being used? Get scope. Value content. Just wondering if we can get away with changing the get scope to take these guys separately. So it takes the ID separately, and it takes the name separately. Then you don't need this pair. You need to initialize this pair all the time. Suppose you have to then make everybody else do that as well. Push in pair. You'd also be sort of maybe it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's a little bit weird that this is it's checking if it's an open brace but doing nothing. I mean, this is something it needs to do. We do need to check that it is an open brace, so we can actually report syntax correctness. But it's just a bit dodgy to have like have a conditional that just ends up with you doing absolutely sod all. I mean, you could sort of just give it something to do. give it this, and put that into both of the cases. I don't know, maybe it's just more fun just to leave it like this and just have have a totally empty scope. Yeah, I do feel like this is set a variable just isn't needed. Don't I? Well, actually, I might actually revise that opinion. I'll tell you why. Say like we've absorbed a setting. Then the field for ourselves should be set to is not set. Basically, is set should be false, shouldn't it? But if we can get an assignment in other words, get assignments, if we can pull in one that's been absorbed, then we can go ahead and set it ourselves, and then set is set. Yeah, I mean this is the situation really. It's like, and I don't think we're checking, are we? We're not even checking the should set, are we? Or whatever that boolean is. What is that thing? Should push. Yeah, we're not even checking should push in the number case for some reason. So to determine whether we should push, all you need to be saying is the field set? Is it a singleton? I think I might leave this for tomorrow actually, because I only want to do a quick one just to nail down a little bit of stuff. Nail down the story regarding a set, assigned singletons, setting things multiple times in the same scope as setting things over a previously absorbed setting. Probably remove the should push boolean. Yeah. So I think that's what I'll leave for tomorrow. But at least we did a little bit this stream. We just essentially, it was just a bit of code. It was literally just basically nothing really, but there's a little bit of code sort of compression. Which I described earlier on in the stream. So if anybody wants to capture that summary of what compression is in the context of code compression, then you'll be able to catch it on the board, which I will upload presently. So yeah, that's it for now. Just under an hour, so that's fine. Don't want to do much, and it's midnight. I kind of want to do some midnight, and yeah, we've done that. So yeah, that's all. Tomorrow we will resume, and we will do this nail down in the story regarding his set, all this bullshit here, and then once we've done this, I reckon we're on with including files. So actually going into the including files, tokenizing those, passing those into our parse tree, essentially. And then after that, it will be going through all of these things and resolving variables. So like this thing here is a variable. We'd resolve that. We'd resolve, there should be a home variable somewhere. There's another couple more variables, another variable up here, and these guys, environment variables. So essentially the way that probably will work is when you see one of these, you just sort of see, we'll have a rule as to how far this goes, and it's probably just going to be, these guys can contain, well, we'll figure out what shell, what the rules are for people like Bash and ZSH. It's probably like, it can start with a letter and it can contain an underscore maybe, and it can maybe contain numbers, and it doesn't contain things like that. So you might also have to support like this sort of syntax just to make sure that you actually can delimit stuff as you need to delimit it. You might have to support that, but we'll see. Essentially just go through and it'd first see if we've got one of those things we can set. If we can, then we set it. What I mean by that is if we've got one locally in our system that we can actually set, then we set it. Otherwise it goes out to environment variables, which is what these guys are, so that it would just do like a getEnv and see what the environment variable for that is. Or it won't actually do that, it would do the word expand. I think I probably use that function. So we can actually, that can do some funny stuff with the home environment variable. Essentially getting that out of the etc password file. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, but anyway, once we've got that, we will then, once we're resolving those, we're resolving them into the actual structure, the actual config structure. And then, yeah, we'll be then on with, probably at that point, we'll be getting all this, we'll just copy this stuff into Cinera's own file, and then working it into the whole system. So yeah, anyway, tomorrow, this. So thank you very much, heroes and heroines, for being fantastic, beautiful, and generally heroic. Until next time, farewell for now.